to announce that we have a facility for translations into Nepali. So those of you who would like to listen to, there is an icon in your set. You can click. It is written in Japanese, but you can click in Japanese to listen to Nepali. Sorry for these technical issues, but click to Japanese to listen to Nepali language. Besides, we also have a facility for Nepali Sign Language, which will be conducted by Shilu Sharma. You can watch her in your screen. So, dear all, COVID-19 has fundamentally changed our ways of working. We have had to adapt to working remotely and much more. The pandemic presents unprecedented challenges, but also opportunities for collaborations, innovation, and transforming our ways of working and learning together. What this difficult time taught us is that we want to hold on. What challenges we will need to continue to navigate, and what do we think about all these issues? We need to share our experience and look forward to adapting best practices within the available resources that we have with us. We need to crowdsource ideas and leverage the creativity, experience, and skills from across the society and system. Complementing in parallel with the challenge, the UN in Nepal has initiated this dialogue in light with the COVID-19 pandemic disrupting our lives and education system, and within the context of UN at 75th anniversary celebration, to explore and provide a platform to facilitate discussion on topics or aspects that the current situation has brought before us. And today, dear participants, the topic is reimagining education for the future we want. Such dialogues aim to enable all participants to share thoughts and feelings and contribute to reimagining our priorities and ways forward. Today's webinar also aims to provide a forum for more localized discussions to address specific needs by different groups with key concept of leaving no one behind, for example, the disabled population and other high-risk communities, and to feed into and join the dots with other discussions on COVID-19 response and devise strategies, reform, future of work, change, and new ways of working. Certainly, this is the time that needs for greater conversation, collaboration, and meaningful involvement. We hope that you will take this opportunity to take action and have your voice heard. So today we have a list of distinguished panelists who will be speaking, addressing to all of us. So we'll have a welcome remarks which will be given by the UN Resident Coordinator for Nepal, Valerie Julien. We'll also have Christian Manhart, UNESCO representative in Nepal. And we'll also have LK Witch, UNICEF representative. Similarly, we have 3 youth speakers also with us. Shaili Chaudhary, she is the chairperson of Sanskriti, which is an NGO. We will also have a youth speaker, Savitri Paurel. She is a student of St. Xavier's College. We'll have Sangam Subedi. He's a student of Kathmandu Model College. And besides, we'll have remarks given by Mr. Yadav Chandra Nirola, who is from the Ministry of Education of the Government of Nepal. So without further ado, I would like to request UN Resident Coordinator for Nepal, Ms. Valerie Julien, to give the welcome remarks. Valerie, over to you, please.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Let me see. I'm trying to get different cameras. I think yes, this one will be better. Yes, good morning. I'm very happy to be with you all today. And I must say, I think it's a really important event than to reimagine the education for the future we want. It's interesting to call it reimagine because it meant that we have imagined it already before, but now we
पुनर्कल्पना गर्ने भनौं न एक प्रकारको कल्पना हामीले गरिसकेका छौं तर त्यसलाई हामीले फेरि समीक्षा गरेर हेर्नु पर्यो र
do this exercise and think about what the future of education should look like.
शिक्षाको भविष्य कस्तो हुनुपर्छ त भन्ने कुरा
It's because we do it today. And
र
today is actually
महत्त्वपूर्ण किन पनि हो भन्दाखेरि आज हामी गर्छौँ किनभने आज एकदमै महत्त्वपूर्ण छ किनभने अहिले चाहिँ हामी कोभिड पेन्डेमिकको चाहिँ बिचमा छौँ र अहिलेसम्म पनि युद्धमा बाहेक यस्तो स्थिति कहिले पनि आएको थिएन र त्यही भएर
And when we think of that, we consider also that too often the youth, the young people are excluded they are excluded from the decision that impact their own future. They are not considered usually as unequal stakeholders. And we don't consider the thoughts, the ideas, the concerns that affect them, mostly because they are young people. And there is that belief that because they are young people, they don't have a place at the table. And we know that this cannot continue. We know that youth deserve to have a seat at the table where decisions are taken that will impact their future. So that's why we want to hear from you, and so that we can jointly imagine or reimagine the future of education. And of course, we're not talking about only education. We talk about the future of the world we want. What is the type of world that we want to see and we want to evolve in? You as youth, but also after that, your children. But also this is an important moment because this year we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. So we have also embarked on the same endeavor from the UN perspective to hear from all the people what they think about the UN, what they think the UN should focus on. And we have asked everybody, you, me, your teachers, everybody to answer. This is the UN 75 survey. And if you haven't done it yet, please do it. We've actually done a large campaign in Nepal to sensitize everybody, to inform everybody so that we can collect this information from you. So it means that when we look at UN turning 75 and COVID, this is the proper moment to think about those issues and address them. Now, when I go back to COVID, I just want to indicate that actually COVID has also had an impact that is very interesting because it has shed the light on the inequalities of our societies, on the flaws of our society. And therefore, it's calling on us to right the wrongs. We know now what didn't work in the past. And that's why when we are going to build again, we should not build as it was before. We should build a different world, a world that will not create the inequalities that the previous world before COVID has created, a world where the youth are heard and where education is given the place it deserves. Because we know that without the proper education, there cannot be a good development in any country of the world. And that's why, as I said, we as UN, we also reflect on what we should do, how we should do it. And that's very important. And as I said, COVID has also meant that many children have actually had to adapt to a new way of learning, to new methods to learn, and principally remote learning. So in that sense, the digital element is a critical component of education. Technology has actually played a critical role so that students can be connected, engaged, and motivated. But when we say so, what does it mean? Well, it means that many children didn't have access to technology. Many children don't have a proper computer or their own computer to work on. So what it means is that the new system that we have now of learning, the remote learning, has actually highlighted the digital divide that existed before and that we need to address if we don't want, through this new method of learning, create other type of inequalities and leave behind other group of people. Because remote learning is not available to everybody today because of this digital divide. So inequality will only increase if we don't address this digital divide. Inequality will only increase if we don't take into consideration what exists within the new system as well. So when we talk about imagining the future of education, we need to factor this in. And we need to consider existing inequalities so that the new system addresses them and not reinforces them. So of course, reimagining education starts with the SDG number 4. And you know, this SDG means that all countries are committed to ensure, and here I quote, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education, and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. What does it mean? Well, it means that the curriculum for education should be designed to address the needs of young people, of their communities, and the society at large. What it means as well is that school and colleges must work to prepare their students for the new world of work and the changes in the labor market. Because also what COVID has created, as well as the development path on which the world was, is that the students of today are going to do tomorrow jobs that we don't know of today. Because the way the world evolves, in 20 years, when you will be, some of you finishing your education, the youngest of you, then the job you're going to be doing, we have no idea today. We can't even think of it. So yes, that's what we have to imagine. And then the teachers have to be part of this transformation. Without teachers being attuned to the changes, anticipating the changes, contributing to the amendment and the changes that have to come, then it cannot happen. So the question is, what's next for the student, for the teachers, for the faculty, for the staff? Thinking education means that we need to think of all those aspects. And we know that actually the answers can be and should be as varied as the number of students and institutions that exist. And that's why we want to talk to you today. That's what we want to hear from you today. Because then we can get those inputs as varied as they are. They will help us in designing that. And we want you to be the drivers of the change. We want to address that issue that I mentioned at the beginning, saying that usually the voice of the youth is not considered. So we want your voice to be heard and your ideas to be considered. So that's why we call on you today, all of you, so that we can jointly imagine the future of education. And we need to imagine a future that is open to all. Because this is also another inequality that we need to address, is that so much time we have seen that education is not accessible maybe to girls, to certain ethnic groups, to certain castes, or even if it is accessible, it's not the same quality. Why is it so? Why should this continue? Why some ethnic groups should be denied the same level and quality education than other ethnic groups? Why should girls be denied the same as boys? So that's why also the future of education needs to address this. And what about the disabled people? People with disability have the right to the same quality education everywhere. Because as I said on many occasions, people with disability have abilities. And therefore we need to capitalize on their abilities as well. So what it means is that education must not reinforce inequality. So the same way, in the new education, the education of tomorrow, we have to make sure that we form the mind not to embrace any prejudice. This is so critical in the education of tomorrow, because too often people are brought up in an environment, whether it's their society, whether it's their religion, whether it's their family, where prejudices exist, where we ask people, well, not we ask, we train people to think that some people don't have the same rights or are inferior. Those prejudices need to be addressed in the education of tomorrow. So this is part, in my view, of what the education of the future should be, so that we don't leave on the side the marginalized, the people who are different, or the people of a different gender, or a different ethnic or race, or you name it. Education should be universal for everybody, irrespective of your sex, your gender, your religion, the color of your skin, you name it, your social class or else. So let's do that today. Let's hear your voice, and let's make sure that while putting our voice together, we address the inequality in Nepal that have been long-lived, that continue to exist. And you see what makes me very sad? It's when I see that there are young people who actually have already in them the seeds of discrimination, the seeds of thinking that some people don't have the same rights as they have. And this we must address. Because the young people of today, you are the ones who are going to create the future of Nepal tomorrow. And that's why your mind has to be attuned to those values of gender equality, of equality in general at all levels, that discrimination is not an acceptable mechanism. So I count on you, so that the education that we imagine will really be the education for all, universal, and will create a society that is gender equal and race equal, ethnic equal at all levels. So thank you very much. Let us work together and imagine the future of education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Valérie-Julien, for your most thought-provoking, welcome remarks. And I would like to add one thing, that this has been translated both into English and into Nepali. So whichever you prefer, you can listen to this mode. I would like to also inform that so far we have now 870 participants which are participating here today. I would also like to reiterate what Ms. Valérie-Julien said right now, is that this year, 1920, consists of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. And for this, as Valérie-Julien stated, that we have a survey, very short survey, on the future that you want. So please, it is there in the chat box. We kind of humbly request you, all of you, to participate in this short survey. So with this, I would like to proceed forward and request Mr. Christian Manhart, UNESCO representative in Nepal, to give his presentation. Christian, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ram, and thank you for inviting me to this very important brainstorming we have today. I'm really happy to be with you, and I'm impressed that we have over 870 participants in our webinar. And you know that UNESCO has an E in its name, and this E stands for education. And we are extremely concerned of the situation during this COVID crisis, because it is a historic disruption in education. We never had this in the world. So there are over 1.8 billion learners affected by it. And in Nepal, over 8 million learners. And this goes from early childhood until long life learning, up to old people who learn to read and to write, and also vocational training, which is training preparing for job. And education is a fundamental human right, which all of us have, and this right is at the moment denied to many people. And the cost of this is really tremendous. So much of the progress which has been made during the last years and even the last decades under the 2030 education and under the SDGs SDG 4 for education, much of this progress has been lost already now within a few months, and it will take very long time to catch up this. And we also see that the gaps, the inequalities are rapidly widening, as Valerie has indicated already. So we have social gaps between the rich and the poor. We have racial gaps. We have geological gaps between the people who live in cities, who have easy access to internet, and those in particular in Nepal living in remote areas. And then also we have the gender gap. So we have seen worldwide girls are much more affected by this, and also girls drop out much easier from school. So we have an estimate of 28 million dropouts of school in worldwide, who we suppose will never come back to school. So they are lost. They are really a lost generation. 28 million. This is an enormous figure, and we also have the other aspects that schools protect the children. Schools are safe places for children against domestic violence, against gender-based violence. Also, we see that the school meals, which are essential for many people for many young all over the world, are dramatically lacking during that period. And then we see an increase of social and psychological problems. So we have just earlier this day at the UNCT, so the United Nations Country Team, discussed about suicide. We saw how dramatically the suicide rates raised all over the world, but in particular in Nepal we are concerned, and we had a few days back the World Day for the fight against suicide. But it's not only the children and the learners who are affected. It's also this COVID crisis also has an impact on the parents, who often cannot work or can work only part-time because they have to teach their children or to watch their children at home, but also on the teachers who are not prepared for these new learning methods, the IT techniques. Also many teachers in private schools, they lost their job. So therefore UNESCO and the UN as a whole, we are working for reopening these schools. So we have an alliance of UNICEF, UNESCO and the World Bank to worldwide create the conditions that schools can be opened again. And from other countries, we have seen that there is no dramatic increase of infection rates in the schools when all the safety measures are taken. And there are 4 recommendations of the Global Education Coalition, which is convened by UNESCO. The first one is to suppress the transmission of the virus, which is evident, of course. The second one is to protect education financing, because we have seen that in many organizations, but also in many governments, the funding which were foreseen for education activities have been repurposed to COVID response activities. So we really we plead to the governments not to reduce the education financing, to keep it up at their level. To build resilient education systems. And the fourth one, which is very relevant for us, is to accelerate learning, to reimagine teaching and learning. And here we want to listen to you. Of course, ICTs in education are very important, access to ICTs, but then also to imagine teaching which is more job orientated, because we see very often that the young people, they learn for years a lot of things, but these things are not necessary for their job. So we have to reorient the teaching, and I'm sure we will get lots of innovative and good ideas from you today. And I will stop with this, and thank you very much. Dhanyabad.
Thank you very much, Christian, for sharing the initiatives being taken by the UN and especially by UNESCO and other. In terms of education-related activities. With this, I would like to request Elke Witsch she's the UNICEF representative, to shed her views on the importance of psychosocial innovation approaches to education. Elke, over to you, please.
Namaste and good morning to all. It is wonderful to be part of this very important panel and to join my colleagues Valerie and Christian and our other distinguished panelists, particularly the young people and our colleagues, a colleague from the Ministry of Education, Technology and Science on this panel this morning. I think my colleagues have already stressed the critical and vital importance of education. And we really look forward to hearing from all of you what your views are, what your ideas are. I think many of us working in the education sector are having many discussions and many exchanges amongst the professionals working in the education field. Yet probably we don't have enough opportunity, or we're not seeking enough opportunities to actually exchange with those who are demanding this education, who need this education. So as was noted, we're living in a time of extraordinary circumstances and extraordinary challenges at the moment for all countries around the world, but also very much here in Nepal. And what we have seen over the past few months is that the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted particularly children and young people in many devastating ways beyond the immediate risk of being infected. The pandemic has taken children away from their schools and education. It has kept them from moving and playing freely, and instead confined them to their homes. It has brought many fears about the risks of COVID-19 infection for their families and loved ones, as well as new anxieties about family livelihoods and their own futures. Importantly, the combined impact of the multiple social and economic pressures has introduced more violence into many homes, which has impacted children and young people either directly as they have been violated, or indirectly when witnessing violence against their caretakers. So the question of how we can reimagine education for the future we want in this difficult context, and the implications this will have, not only for every single child and student, yet moreover for the socioeconomic development for countries across the world, including here in Nepal, is of critical importance. And my fellow speakers have already highlighted that. In response to the impact of COVID-19, and particularly the fact that children and young people have not been able to physically access their education institutions, as was already highlighted, there have been many joint efforts to expand access to different types of online as well as offline media. So there has been increased focus on providing education online, but also through television, through radio, through home learning packages. So really trying to expand the different ways in which children and young people could be learning in the situation where they cannot be physically going to school, and where they, importantly, do not have the teachers who, as has been noted before by Valerie and Christian, are critical to children's learning. Yet despite these efforts, and as we know from surveys and analysis that have been carried out, many children have remained unreached by these different education tools, particularly those most marginalized. Most of whom do not have access, of course, importantly, to online media, but who even live remotely and therefore were not necessarily reached by even the take-home packs. We're particularly concerned that a prolonged school closure could hit girls and the most vulnerable, including those children and students and young people with disabilities, the hardest, as many of them are unlikely to return to schools even after the reopening of the schools. So while increasing access to digital education is, of course, a major priority, starting with the infrastructure that will be required for that, as well as the equipment, etc., the quality of this online learning brings also many challenges, particularly for younger children, for whom the teacher's presence and direct interaction is critical to support their learning. So making the reopening of schools a priority within the reopening process will be critical. As noted, reaching the more marginalized and unreached with off-grid solutions to allow children from all backgrounds to continue their learning and thereby preventing a digital divide is a top priority in the joint efforts to rethink learning and to redesign education services that are relevant in our new normal. As we all know, there is no better investment in the future than an investment in children and young people, who are tomorrow's workforce, employees, employers, entrepreneurs, innovators, and importantly, tomorrow's leaders. So as young people and all of you online try to continue to build your own futures within the context of COVID-19, you're also building Nepal's future. And it is important that all of us work together to ensure that all of you get the support that you need, specifically the education you need and the training and skills to fulfill your potential. We understand that across Nepal, nearly 70% of the unemployed workers are young people. They face a combination of challenges. I've noted already poverty, inequality, and exclusion, and the lack of skills and training. Girls in particular are often shut out of schools and employment through early marriage. The ongoing pandemic has further exacerbated all of these previously already existing and underlying issues. I want to come back a bit again on the issue of mental health. Which is an important concern, as has been noted by my colleagues, particularly the rising mental health issues in the current context, and the related need for psychosocial and mental health support for children and young people, whether that is be at home through professional services, but also importantly as part of their education. If we want to provide this next generation with the education and skills they need, we also need to include tools and support to manage their physical and mental well-being. It is alarming to see that suicide among adolescent girls has increased by almost 40% during the 4 months of lockdown compared to the same duration the previous year. While suicide is increasing among youth, we're also concerned that young people are less likely to reach out and ask for help, as we have not seen a lot of demand voiced by young people to the helplines that are available to support. Beyond the loss of the individual's life, of course, every suicide also leaves a trail of grief among those close to them and a loss to the country. It is essential, therefore, to expand support services for youth, as well as address the social stigma associated with mental health issues. We must all work together for it to be okay to say, I'm not okay. I also want to come back to the important issue of the relevance of the education that we want to build. In relation to these other aspects of their lives, young people are forthcoming with what they want. They're telling us what they need, and we're looking forward again today to hear from all of you what your ideas and thoughts are. What we do know from existing surveys and interactions is that you do demand education, and education of better quality and more relevance to the world that we live in and the world of tomorrow. So how do we jointly improve this quality and reach of all levels of education, and how do we modernize primary and importantly secondary education and training possibilities to help you build the competencies and skills to lead productive lives and work? We do know that young people need 21st century skills for 21st century economies. These include skills, digital skills, green technology, modern agriculture, financial skills. So how can we foster a mindset of entrepreneurship and collaborate with all of you as problem solvers? You have demanded better vocational training and internships that can give you hands-on experience and to link you with entrepreneurs and guidance on how to build your entrepreneurship and to build your own businesses. We know that across South Asia, there are many good examples that we can gather inspiration from. In India, iMitra is a company that trains young entrepreneurs so they can establish their own eye care businesses in villages and cities, a major shortcoming, particularly in remote areas. In the Maldives, a telecommunications company called Ooredoo has established a digital education assistance program to match employees' skills with jobs across the country. There are many more examples such as these. To help amplify more of these examples, make the linkages and connect young people with education and different skills programs, as well as with employers and entrepreneurs, we have been working together in the UN system on the Generation Unlimited initiative. This GenU initiative is a partnership platform that brings together public and private partners to develop solutions that can improve learning and skills training for an entire generation of young people. We have seen great opportunities arise when education ministries work closely with businesses to find ways to strengthen the future workforce. Similarly, success is evident where businesses make it a priority to provide opportunities for young people to enter the job market, such as through internships, job matching, and support for training in schools. The informal sector and area of entrepreneurship represents a vast array of employment opportunities. So how can we work together on linking a more relevant future education system with entrepreneurship programs that provide the skills, information, and hands-on experience that young people need to succeed in the informal economy by creating a business of their own? So as you can tell, colleagues, there are many, many ideas already on the table. There are good examples that we have seen in Nepal and from other countries around us, but there are also many, many more questions that remain. So we're very much looking forward today to this opportunity to hear from all of you online and for future opportunities to engage with all of you so that we can make sure that the education that you will receive will have all of you accessing it, whether you are boys or girls, young men or young women, living in remote locations from different groups across society, from marginalized backgrounds or from privileged backgrounds, and that this education will help you to link also to future employment. Thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to the exchange. Dhanyabad.
Thank you very much, LK. As you rightly mentioned, and which I'm sure that all participants will agree that COVID-19 has impacted children and young people, not only from education point of view, but also from the socio-economic point of view faced by their caretakers. Moreover, as you rightly mentioned, girls, children with disability and from marginalized communities are the hardest hit. And one thing that you very strikingly mentioned is that it's okay to say that I'm not okay. So, and beside that, all the important points that you raised, I'm sure that you are getting a lot of questions. And I would like to request, in fact, we are getting a lot of questions from the participants. And I would like to request the panelists to stay back to answer some of the key questions, some of the questions that we would like to forward to you for your reply. And as there are so many questions coming to us, I think time constraint will not allow to answer one by one to all those questions being posed. But nevertheless, we will compile these questions and ensure that they are answered to all the question that has been posed here. With this, I would like now to move on to our young speakers, the youth speakers. Please feel free to choose the language that you'd like to speak, either in Nepali or in English, because we have this facility for interpretation. So I would like to invite the first youth speaker. She is Shaili Chaudhary, chairperson of Sanskriti NGO. Shailiji, over to you. You can speak in English or Nepali?
I'd prefer English. We have the translation, right? Yeah, okay, thank you. First of all, thank you to the UN and the team for inviting me for this panel discussion. And congratulations to the UN team for completing 75 years. And I believe that they will be doing much more wonderful works in the days coming ahead. Since all the speakers before me have highlighted so few of the things that how the COVID has impacted all of us and how it is going to impact us in the future as well. Obviously, COVID-19 has their own repercussions on everyone, especially in Nepal and the rural areas of Nepal. So I'd like to bring on a few new points, which would be further we can discuss on it. While going on that, I'd like to highlight 3 facts which would show something which is going on the policy level, which is going on the internet level, and which is going on the community level. So broadband policy 2015 said that it will connect all the rural areas, all the districts by optical fiber by 2020. But obviously that was not fulfilled because the internet facility is city-centric. It didn't take in account about the people of a mass of people who are living on the lower income, and the internet connection is substandard. So this shows that how the policy level are functioning on their level to facilitate the country with the internet facility. Similarly, the NTA, Nepal Telecom Administration, claims that this year there has been 11% surge in the mobile users, the data users, mobile internet users, which brings that we have 14.65 million users by April 2020. But at the same time, International Telecommunication Union says that it is a hoax, and actually they are not so much of internet users, and it is city-centric. Yet in rural areas, the data connection is at least not reached to 3G, let alone the 4G and 5G services. And at the same time, I have an incident which happened in one of the district in Madhes of Nepal, that I'm not, if you have heard of it, Simrangarh. It is one of the place in Bara. So what happened there was that a community, a Wada committee decided that females, the girls below the age of 20, won't be led to use mobile phones. If they are found to have mobile phones with them, they will be fined 50,000 and maybe a jail imprisonment or something of that sort. And this shows that how community is looking on the gender-based the internet use. And this was done on the sole purpose that females are carried to are responsible for the honor of the family, and there were cases of girls eloping with other guys, and internet is the main reason that things were happening. Though the decision was taken back when the human rights activists and other local activists raised their voice that this is fundamentally wrong decision. But this shows that how the community is generally biased on the internet use. So now while talking about that, we are already sure that COVID has affected us and people are going to our more digital education. But we need to look into account that most of the, at least in Madhes, because I have worked in the rural areas of Madhes through my organization, and we have been working on youth empowerment through different vocational trainings. We have been providing them vocational training so that would help them in their own empowerment, and they can pursue their career in the following their passion. So we have observed that there had been various loopholes in the system of local state government and the community building, which need to be focused on. And while talking about the digital education system, it is quite not possible yet in Nepal, at least, or in the rural areas of Nepal, because first, the income is very low in the rural areas. They even, at least at present time during the pandemic and after the pandemic, since the recession is coming on soon and there are going to be the firings and all those things, so there will be less job opportunities, there would be less employment opportunities, and self-employment opportunities are also really scared because of different reasons. Maybe that could be due to financial resources or the other resources. So while keeping those in mind, when people have problem feeding their own family the 3-time meals of a day, how can we expect them to have a digital software or digital device and the software and the digital connection and the internet broadband services in their areas when even the 3G of mobile network doesn't work, let alone the optical fiber and other internet service providers services. So we need to keep those things in mind when we are talking about redefining education for the future. While talking about the policy level, we could focus on the few things. First thing is that we need to redefine the whole education curricular system, because the curricular system is so old that it doesn't focus on the vocational trainings. It doesn't focus on the demand source which are needed today. It has been old, it has been traditional. For example, if I want to be involved in art till grade 8, till grade 10th, that is till SEE, I need to study all the subjects, which might not be necessary and helpful for me because I want to pursue something in art. For example, if I'm interested in photography and I want to do photography and I want to pursue photography as my career, I don't need to study science till grade 10. A basic information or basic education system would be enough. So we need to redefine curriculum of our country, which is obviously the policy level work. And I believe the representative who is here among us from the ministry would shed some lights on that. So I won't talk about it much. And plus, we need to focus on the qualitative education system, because at present we are focusing on the quantitative system, but that is not going to bring us the best result which we are expecting. And if we are talking about redefining education, we need to redefine that as well. At the similarly, we need to come up with the ideas that how broadband services could be facilitated in the rural areas, because if we continue the process in the same way we are continuing till today, even during the COVID period, we are going the disparity which is among the rural and the urban area is going to be more broadened and not bridged. And we don't need that, because we don't need that 70% of the citizen of our nation stays uneducated or not aware of these things, and 30% is super skilled. So we need to balance that as well. So we need to focus on that as well. And we need to come up, not just the government, but all the other organization and our individual capacity as well. We need to come up with the vocational trainings. Like Sanskriti has been doing vocational trainings regarding for the youth who are involved in the creative field. We have been doing on the mural art, we have been doing on the photography skills, journalism skills, and dance, music, all the creative fields. But we can do all the vocational trainings on other areas as well, because the people in rural areas are more based in the creative field, like the paintings and the tailoring. They are more focused on that, on the agriculture products. So we could provide them vocational training, which could eventually help them to self-sustain, self-empower, and redefine the education in that area, and to help us achieve what we are trying to achieve. So that is a really necessity of need. We need to think about that, and we also need to think about the privileges we have, because obviously I'm a resident of a city area, and I have the privilege that I could join this session as a panelist, and I could speak in English. So that is a privilege for me, and I'm trying to rethink my privilege and unlearn it, and do as much as I can on the individual capacity for the people in rural areas. Not being the protector, I'm just trying to be the ally. I'm always ready to help and moderate in any way I can. So I think there are other questions as well we will be taking in the further session. So I'd like to wrap up my few points here, and we'll continue to discuss further. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shaili Chaudhary-ji, and for raising key pertinent issues and of the current time. Namely, you mentioned about the gender bias on the use of technology in certain region of the country. You also mentioned the various kinds of digital divide that is prevailing, and the need to redefine education curriculum in the current context. So these are very key and pertinent questions that you have raised, and we hope that we'll get some answers from other panelists also. Dear panelists, keeping the time constraint in mind, I would like to request that you limit your deliberation for 5 minutes each. So moving forward, I would like to now request Savitri Paudel. She is a student of St. Xavier College. So over to you, Savitri Paudel. And at the same time, I would like to request all the participants to please fill up the UN at 75 survey, which is in your chat box. Meanwhile, thank you very much. Over to you, Savitri Paudel.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Warm greetings. I'm Savitri Paudel from St. Xavier's College, currently studying in bachelor's third year. I'm a person with visual disability, and today I'm highly privileged to be a part of UN 75th anniversary celebration. And today I will be speaking on the educational problems faced by persons with disability, and will be also focused on the future that we reimagine in the educational sector. One of the study carried out by Blind Youth Association Nepal shows that only around 20% of the total persons with disability have access to proper education in Nepal. This tragic data proves that more than half of the persons with disability are not getting the light of education. In my opinion, it is mainly due to the inaccessible infrastructure of it is mainly due to the it is mainly due to the inaccessible infrastructures of educational institutions. I myself have a bitter experience while I graduated from my school after, and I have, while I started joining my 11, grade 11, I had a bitter experience that more than 5 of the private colleges rejected me because of my visual disability. Just they told me that the infrastructures that are not accessible is the main barrier for you to reach out in these institutions. Likewise, there is also lack of availability of sufficient accessible educational resources for the persons with disability. I myself have not got any braille books while I started to study from grade 11 till grade 10. We used to share braille books within 4 or 5 people and used to study one book by sharing with 4 or 5 people. But while I graduated from school SLC and while I started studying in grade 11, I myself have no any braille books available right now. I totally have to depend upon the internal resources and upon my classmates in order to fulfill my academic courses. It proves that the situation, the availability of resources are quite insufficient. And one of the study shows that the academic curriculum for the persons with intellectual disability, multiple disability, and persons with Down syndrome has not been designed yet in Nepal. Even today, there is no proper academic curriculum for those severe disabilities, persons with severe disabilities. And even the literate persons, some of the literate persons with disability who are educated, they are not provided with employment opportunities. New horizons of job opportunities are yet to be explored in the field of disability. Now, I would like to move towards some of the solutions that I really imagine to be taken away in the future. First of all, in my opinion, in my opinion, all the educational institutions should be designed following the universal accessibility guidelines so that all the persons with disability will have equal access to quality education. And secondly, the technology-based education as per the need of personal difference should be provided by following web content accessibility guidelines. And thirdly, disabled-friendly technical and vocational education should be prioritized so that persons with disability will have access to employment based on their technical and vocational skills. Till today, I think the persons with disability do not have access to study the technical and vocational educations provided by the Nepal government. So I think this topic should be highly prioritized so that all the persons with disability who are interested to be focused on technical and vocational educations can study as per their wish and can also work being based on their can also be self-employed being based on their technical and vocational education. And finally, the concept of special need university can be initiated. Here, special need university means the university that can provide special education to persons with disability. And as there are very few research and studies carried out in Nepal, this university can help to carry out various types of research and can also help to produce different resources uh, required for person with disability. Such type of the concept of such type of university will I think directly enhance to improve the quality of life of persons with disability. Therefore, I imagine the future where all the persons with disability will have equal access to quality education and no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Savitri Paurulji, and for highlighting the stark reality faced by persons with disability in gaining education in Nepal. And we have duly noted some of the solutions that you spelled out to overcome these challenges and make it more disabled-friendly and technical and vocational education, emphasized education. Thank you very much. So moving forward, I'd like to now request Mr. Sangam Subedi, a student from Kathmandu Model College, to give his remarks within 5 minutes of time. Sangamji, please.
So it has been an honor and pleasure to be a member of this panelist with Valerie and other respected dignitaries. So I would like to start by giving a congratulations to the UN for the 75 successful years. So as we know that all the education system and the way of educating has been in way of transformation every year. This COVID-19 pandemic has given us a new challenge to learn this in again a different way. So on behalf of the students, we face different challenges because of this pandemic. Every time there are somebody who encourages us every time a completely new way of teaching methodology, which is completely new for us. We are not on a daily basis used to with the technology we are using right now. The way we are using the technology, we are accessing it, we are happy for that, but not all the students can afford, not all the students from the rural area, we stay in the urban area can afford that facilities. We can take that facilities, we are happy for us, but we cannot avoid the students and our friends who are staying in the rural areas, who don't have the accessibility to the internet facilities, so we cannot take their classes, so we are missing the education facilities, basic level of education facilities. Even the way we are getting the education with the physical distance maintaining, which in the availability of the teachers, on the lack of direct observation of the teachers, which can hamper our creativity and learning ways. So I, staying in the urban area, can say that I'm happy with the way of education I'm getting, but we cannot exclude the communities that are in the rural sectors, despite of the various difficulties they are facing. They are not getting the basic level of education for everyone. So that should be the basic concern for us. So due to the restricted mobility and continuous lockdown may have led most of the students to the mental and emotional health issues. So to overcome them, we need to engage all the students with their family members, encourage them, motivate them to work in a positive way. So involve in an entertaining and funny way. So involve themselves in various activities so that they plan a routine and follow that routine in a specific way, so that different things doesn't come in their mind, which get hindrances. So we have a government representative here also. So for him, I will like to mention 1 2 suggestions for every one of us. So strategies can be brought from the low level to low tech strategy to high tech strategy, so that every students of each nook and corner of our country can get the basic level of educations. So we can train, we can use the locally trained volunteers to provide basic level of educations in this pandemic. So we can train the teachers to use the latest technology and advancement we are using now, so that they don't feel any problem while teaching the students. We can feel that the students nowadays are well equipped with the accessories, gadgets available, but the teachers may not be all accompanied with those accessories. They might have problem in using those applications. So we can give training sessions for the teachers as well as for the students. We must, before bringing out in plans and actions, we need to check the availability, if all the students can afford that or not, if all the parents can afford the available resources or not, so that practical approach of education based on life skills can be run for all the students available in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sangam Subediji. You effectively raised the common challenges that students in Nepal are facing in the pandemic situation in gaining access to education. So thank you very, very much. Moving forward, I would like now to request Mr. Yadav Chandra Nirola, Under Secretary at the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology, to give his remarks, please. Mr. Yadav Chandra Nirola, are you hearing us?
Yes. Are you hearing me, sir?
Yes, very much. Over to you, sir. Over to you.
Okay. नमस्कार। सर्वप्रथम संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघको स्थापना भएको 75औं वर्षको अवसरमा यो जुन कार्यक्रमको आयोजना गरियो, यो कार्यक्रम
the UN and then organizing this program. So I would like to thank UN and all other agencies.
मन्त्रालयको तर्फबाट हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त गर्दछु। सर सुनिएको छ?
सुनिएको छ सर। सुनिरहेको छु।
हजुर, मैले हुन्छ, मैले अघि साथीहरुका केही जिज्ञासाहरू पनि आएका छन्, ती कुराहरू र अब ती कुराहरूलाई पनि अलिकति गर्दै म मेरो समयमा सकाउने प्रयत्न गर्दछु। सर्वप्रथम यो आयोजना गर्नुभएकोमा हार्दिक कृतज्ञता ज्ञापन गर्दछु शिक्षा विज्ञान तथा प्रविधि मन्त्रालयको तर्फबाट। सरले भन्नुभएको म सचिव होइन, उपसचिव हुँ। मैले शिक्षा विज्ञान तथा प्रविधि मन्त्रालयको पुस्तकालय समन्वय तथा अभिलेख शाखाको प्रतिनिधित्व गर्दछु। र हामी सबैलाई थाहा छ कोभिड-19 को कारणले हामी लगभग नेपालकै सन्दर्भमा कुरा गर्यो भने 90 लाख भन्दा बढी शिक्षक विद्यार्थीहरू चाहिँ विद्यालयबाट अथवा औपचारिक शिक्षा प्रणालीबाट बाहिर छन्। त्यसकारण उहाँहरूलाई शिक्षालाई एउटा वैकल्पिक माध्यमबाट कसरी अगाडि बढाउने भनेर शिक्षा विज्ञान तथा प्रविधि मन्त्रालयले यसभन्दा अगाडि वैकल्पिक शिक्षा पद्धतिको प्रयोगबाट शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलाप अगाडि बढाउने भनेर असार 1 गतेदेखिको कुराहरू चाहिँ सुरु गरेको थियो। र यो पेन्डेमिक घट्ला र अलिकति चाहिँ शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलापलाई अगाडि बढाउन सकिएला भन्दा झन् बढेको अवस्थामा कसरी अगाडि बढ्ने भन्ने कुरालाई चाहिँ शिक्षा विज्ञान तथा प्रविधि मन्त्रालयले विद्यार्थी सिकाइ सहजीकरण निर्देशिका 2077 जारी गरेको छ। यहाँहरूलाई थाहा नै छ। त्यो अघि साथीहरूले धेरै साथीहरूको पूर्वका साथीहरूले चाहिँ प्रविधिको प्रयोग चाहिँ नेटको प्रयोग हामीसँग सहरमा मात्रै केन्द्रित छ, ग्रामीण इलाकाले चाहिँ त्यो प्रयोग गर्न सकेका छैनन् भन्ने कुरा प्रति सहमति जनाउँदै सबै विद्यार्थीहरूलाई शिक्षण सिकाइ वैकल्पिक माध्यमबाट शिक्षण सिकाइमा कसरी अगाडि बढाउन सकिन्छ भनेर शिक्षा विज्ञान तथा प्रविधि मन्त्रालयले नेपाल सरकारको स्थानीय तहका सबै स्थानीय तहका आधारमा पहुँचको आधारमा स्रोतको पहुँचको अवस्थाको आधारमा विद्यार्थीको पहिचान सबभन्दा पहिले वर्गीकरण गर्ने। त्यो वर्गीकरणको पहिचानले चाहिँ 3-4 वटा कुराहरूलाई विकल्पहरूको कुरा अगाडि बढाएको छ। जस्तै अघि साथीहरूले भने जस्तै कतिपय ग्रामीण इलाकामा सबै किसिमको पहुँच प्रविधिको कुनै पनि प्रविधिको पहुँच भन्दा बाहिर रहेका विद्यार्थीहरू पनि हामीसँग छन्। जोसँग रेडियो एफएम रेडियोको पहुँच भएका विद्यार्थीहरू पनि छन्, टेलिभिजनमा मात्रै पहुँच भएका विद्यार्थी पनि छन्, कम्प्युटरको पहुँच चाहिँ छ घरमा, तर तिनीहरूसँग अनलाइन कनेक्टिभिटीको अवस्था नभएको अवस्था पनि छ। र इन्टरनेट लगायतका सबै पहुँच भएका विद्यार्थीहरूको एउटा समूहलाई विभाजन गरिकन अनि कुन स्थानमा कस्तो खालको शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलाप अगाडि बढाउँदाखेरि सहज हुन्छ भनेर त्यो कार्यक्रमहरूलाई अगाडि बढाइएको अवस्था छ। कतिपय स्थानीय निकायहरूले रेडियोहरू बाँडेर रेडियो मार्फत एफएम रेडियो मार्फत पनि कार्यक्रमहरू सञ्चालन भएका छन्। र यसलाई हामीले वैकल्पिक विधि नै भनेका छौँ। एउटा कुरा म यहाँहरूलाई अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। अनि अघि एकजना साथीले पाठ्यक्रमको कुरा उठाउनु भएको थियो। पाठ्यक्रम जुन नियमित पाठ्यक्रम छ त्यो पाठ्यक्रमलाई अलिकति हामीले थोरै घटाएर समसामयिक रूपमा कति शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलापहरू चाहिँ अगाडि बढाउन सकिन्छ र कति चाहिँ सिकाइ उपलब्धिहरू मात्रै लिन सकिन्छ भनेर थोरै पाठ्यक्रमहरूलाई परिमार्जन गर्ने काम पनि भइरहेको कुरा म यहाँहरूलाई अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। सँगसँगै हामीले विभिन्न शिक्षा विज्ञान तथा प्रविधि मन्त्रालय अन्तर्गत रहेको शिक्षा तथा मानव स्रोत विकास केन्द्रबाट तयार गरिएका रेडियो पाठहरू, अनलाइन सामग्रीहरू, भर्चुअल सामग्रीहरू यहाँहरूले त्यो मानव स्रोत विकास केन्द्रको वेबसाइटबाट साथीहरूले पनि हेर्न सक्नुहुनेछ। सँगसँगै अरू गैर सरकारी संस्थाहरू जस्तै संयुक्त राष्ट्र सङ्घीय निकाय नै भयो लगायत अरू विभिन्न निकायहरूले पनि हामीलाई सहयोग गरिराख्नु भएको छ। पूर्ववक्ता अघि विद्वान व्यक्तित्वहरूले पनि भनिसक्नु भएको छ अनि साथीहरूले पनि कुराहरू उठाइसक्नु भएको छ। त्यस्तै अब अघि नेपाल टेलिकमले पनि यो पेन्डेमिकको अवस्थालाई मध्यनजर गरेर एउटा लर्निङ प्याकेज, ह्याप्पी लर्निङ प्याकेज लगायतका केही प्याकेजहरू ल्याएको छ ताकि थोरै कस्टमा विद्यार्थीहरूले र शिक्षकहरूले शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलापलाई अगाडि बढाउन सकुन् भन्ने हिसाबले पनि त्यो कुरालाई चाहिँ अगाडि ल्याइरहेको छ। त्यो वास्तवमा यो काम समाधान त होइन भन्ने नै हामीले लाग्छ। भोलि हामी रेगुलर क्लास सुरु नहुँदाका दिनसम्म शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलापलाई कसरी निरन्तरता दिने र सकेसम्म धेरै विद्यार्थीहरूलाई अघि भने जस्तै कतिपय विद्यार्थीहरूको चाहिँ अलिकति खराब अथवा चाहिँ आत्महत्या जस्ता अवस्थाहरूबाट कसरी बचाउने, त्यसका लागि चाहिँ सामाजिक सहजीकरणका कुराहरू कसरी गर्ने भन्ने कुरामा हामीले शिक्षा विज्ञान तथा प्रविधि मन्त्रालयले ध्यान दिएको छ। साथै अब विशेष क्षमता भएका विद्यार्थीहरूका लागि अरू विद्यार्थीको तुलनामा स्रोत सामग्रीहरू कम छन्, त्यो कुरालाई मन्त्रालयले स्वीकार गरेको छ र ती सामग्रीहरूको पनि व्यवस्था गर्ने र ती सामग्रीहरूलाई अगाडि बढाउने कुराहरू पनि बढ्दै जाने कुराहरू रहेको कुरा पनि म यहाँ अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। समग्रमा जुन यो हामीले अब परम्परागत शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलापबाट अगाडि बढेर भोलिका दिनमा यस्तो अवस्था आउँदा शिक्षण सिकाइलाई कसरी सहज र सुचारू बनाउने, कमसेकम सबै सामग्रीहरूलाई, पठन सामग्रीहरूलाई विद्युतीकरण गरेर अनलाइनमा राख्न सकिन्छ कि भनेर हामी अनलाइनमा पनि धेरै सामग्रीहरू विकास गरिरहेको छ। यसरी हामीले भोलिका दिनको चुनौतीलाई सामना गर्नका लागि शिक्षा विज्ञान तथा प्रविधि मन्त्रालय लगायत युनेस्को, युनिसेफ लगायतका सबै निकायहरूसँग सहकार्य गरेर हामी अगाडि बढ्ने कुराको प्रतिबद्धता जनाउँदै मैले भन्नुपर्ने कुराहरू र मेरा कुराहरू यही अन्त्य गर्न चाहन्छु। धन्यवाद, नमस्कार।
धन्यवाद यादव चन्द्र निरोला सर। सरकारको तर्फबाट चाहिँ नि सरकारको स्ट्यान्ड र अहिलेको जुन वर्तमान परिस्थितिमा जुन छ त्यसको बारेमा हाइलाइट गरिदिनु भयो र केही प्रश्नहरू पनि सोधिएको प्रश्नहरूको पनि उत्तर दिनुभएको छ। त्यसको लागि चाहिँ नि यहाँलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद छ। Thank you very much. Now we would like to go to the question and answer session. Like I said before the beginning of this webinar, we have received many questions and which is not possible to answer all of them one by one. So basically the kind of questions that we have received are basically related with the digital divide issues and the accessibility of education in this current context to the rural areas. So these are the questions through which most of the questions are revolving. So, but then I would like to first put this question to LK, which is concerned with mental health. And the question is, in most institutions, bullying is taking place in different form, but isn't properly addressed. How can we ensure that learners are growing in a safe environment? And there is a follow-up question also, that will opportunity of education in all parts of Nepal reduce the rate of suicide that you mentioned?
Thank you so much for these very important questions. And I think you are already hitting the nail on the head. We know from different surveys that have been carried out, even since the beginning of the pandemic, We have launched one survey, it's a household survey, which is the Child and Family Tracker, to keep track a bit of the situation of children and their families. And of course, we would like to hear directly from those families. But then also, you might be familiar with the U-Report surveys. So the latest U-Report survey that we have received, again, is highlighting, the earlier Child and Family Tracker was highlighting that there is limited access, of course, as you had noted, but also that there were increasing psychosocial and mental health concerns. Now, the U-Report, interestingly, was highlighting that despite the fact, and that's what I was also alluding to earlier when I spoke, despite the fact that there are some services available, there are psychosocial online helplines available, there are mental health programs available, that often young people are not accessing these or not actually going to these tools and services that are available to demand some of the support that they need. But also what it highlighted when we were asking the question, who would you like to turn to get more support? What would it take? And it was interesting that the majority of the respondents actually pointed to their families and their immediate community. So less to the more technical services, but to their immediate community. So I think the question around bullying and providing more support to the immediate caretakers, and in the immediate caretakers, I would certainly include the teachers as well as the community level on identifying and being able to respond to bullying and making sure that the classroom, if and when eventually the children are back in school, becomes a bullying-free environment and an environment where children and young people feel encouraged and empowered to speak up. Particularly, and we were hearing this very pertinent example about the girls. So particularly girls who often are subject to this, children and students that have a disability, are from other minority or marginalized backgrounds, are often particularly subject to this, but it could really be anyone. Now, the other interesting information that we have, feedback we have from these surveys, is that many of the respondents noted that their concerns and the mental health issues that they're facing, and even those who shared that they are frequently thinking of suicide, this is not directly related to their fear of a COVID infection. So it's not so much the immediate anxiety around COVID and the infection, but it's really the broader, more complex environment around it. The increasing anxieties around poverty in the family, the socioeconomic at the household level, everything is becoming more difficult. We're seeing more violence at family level, whether it is violence towards children, which has definitely increased, with understandably some of the caretakers having their own frustrations and their own anxieties and taking that out on the children. Everybody's spending more time in close quarters, and there's no possibility to take some breaks and also get away from each other. There are many frustrations that come with this. So we're seeing that this is not just the COVID infection fear, but it's really the broader secondary implications and impact of COVID. And what is concerning, of course, around this, going back to the question, while eventually we're looking, of course, forward to having eventually a vaccine, and then that vaccine will be rolled out around the world. And so the fear and the risk of the actual COVID infection will reduce. But of course, the socioeconomic impact of this period will be with us for a much longer time than the concern around the infection. And so we need to definitely make sure that there are increased possibilities and services, increased support to families themselves to support their children and students, increased support to teachers, as well as to the community at large, because they're the ones who are the immediate protection circle for all children and students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elke. There is this question on what do we exactly mean by reimagining the future we want. So LK, perhaps some of the participants are not very clear with the terminology, reimagining the future we want. Is there something that you'd like to add on that?
I can give my interpretation. I certainly don't claim to know, everything about this, but I think the idea really is it's recognition that our lives have now been impacted very directly at the moment, and around the world we're still seeing the more direct impact, of course, that we're under, whether it's because there's on and off lockdowns, there are restrictions, there are limitations to our social interactions, etc., etc. So while all of this will hopefully eventually, as I noted earlier, with the arrival and the rollout of a vaccine, be changing again, I think what this period has taught us is that there are many, it has taught us that we need to change our ways of providing regular services. And that's not limited, of course, to education, but education has been as hard hit as health services and nutrition services and other services. But it's also teaching us that being under these constraints and having had to do things differently is also coming with new opportunities and is also challenging all of us to really think outside the box. Maybe there are things we haven't thought of, and I'm the first one to say clearly what the feedback from these surveys shows us, despite the fact that all education partners in support of the ministry have been working very closely to try and diversify the different education avenues over the last few months, because children could not go to school. So it wasn't only an online education. There were radio programs, there were TV programs, there were self-learning packages that were distributed, etc., etc. But of course, we are cognizant and fully aware that that has not been enough. It hasn't reached every child. So more ideas, more thinking outside the box, more innovative ideas that we may not even have thought of are necessary to help us think through. How do we move forward, both in the current COVID-19 context? Secondly, how do we make our education more relevant? Also looking at the world of tomorrow, which is going to be a different world. Climate change is becoming increasingly important. The economies are changing. The economies have already changed, etc., etc. So that is really what I think is meant by reimagining. It's not just about going back to the old ways and saying, how can we expand the old ways? It's about really redoing a lot of things that we have been doing, finding different ways of doing them, and doing those things that worked already better.
Thank you, LK, for this clarity. Now a question to Christian. Given UNESCO's global experience for the foreseeable future, how can we make digital medium of teaching and learning feasible post-COVID in Nepal? Since developed countries all over the globe have been using this medium for education even before the pandemic started.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ram, for this question. You know, I saw the questions when they came, and also during the presentations, that there was a promise by the government to provide internet all over the country by 2020. But I must say that Nepal is extremely disadvantaged in this. You know, here in Nepal, you have the high mountains, you have very remote valleys. It would be an immense cost to provide internet and fiber cable to these regions. So I think this can be considered as a mission impossible, and we have to find alternatives for this. I come from Germany, and you here in Nepal, people think, yeah, in Germany, every student has access to digital media. This is wrong. In Germany, we have a lot of black holes, and the government is under much pressure in Germany for that. So black holes where there's no internet and even no mobile network, and this is in rural areas which are much more easily accessible than the remote areas here in Nepal. here in Nepal, in the cities now, you have, for example, the 5G network. In Germany, we don't have it yet. The government is still discussing and planning about 5G. So here you are in cities, even sometimes more advanced than Germany. So we have to think about alternatives. We cannot count only on the internet to replace the traditional teaching and learning. So like community radios and the media which Elke just mentioned. I don't want to repeat all this. And I think we have to sit together with the youth and with the Ministry of Education in order to develop these alternatives. We are doing it already, and we provided quite a lot of teaching through community radios, through television, through textbooks, so we printed tens of thousands of textbooks which are distributed in remote areas. But what we have done up to now here in Nepal is just a drop in the ocean. So we have to accelerate. We have to find new ways and better ways how to reach the unreachable. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. There is a follow-up question on this, that what role the UN is playing to provide education to the people of rural areas who do not have access to internet and are not able to afford electronic gadget.
Yeah, I think I replied already mostly to this question, and as I said, we have to do more efforts for this. We have got funding for this, and we are really working closely together with the Education Ministry. But all these measures, they are very slow to be put in place, and we are discussing this also in the education cluster. So the different development agencies working in education, and we work quite closely together with them as well. But it will take time. So we cannot just snip with the fingers and then all this comes. So it will come gradually, and unfortunately, I must say, many of the learners here in Nepal at the moment are excluded.
Thank you, Christian. There is one question again for you. What do you recommend to the government of Nepal as well as the stakeholders of education system of Nepal to do for better education and learnings of students in this new normal pandemic condition?
Yeah, I think what Elke said is to rethink education. How can we make education more efficient? How can we make it more designed towards the real needs, towards the job? I think we have to work more with the private enterprises in order to find out what are the profiles they need, and then we have to train the people. So UNESCO did this, for example, for journalists. We did an evaluation of the curricula for journalists, and we now try to adapt the curricula to the real needs of the profession. But unfortunately, all this takes a long time. But I think we have to be ready to accept that this will take time and will take efforts, and we have all to work together. And I think it's so important to get the feedback of the youth during this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Now a question to Mr. Yadav Chandra Nirola. We see a huge difference between government and private schools since the evolution of education system in Nepal. However, the education system says that there is no gap and compromise in the system. Even in this pandemic, about 80% children are out of reach from formal education, that was supposed to channelize via TV, radio, and other means of communication. How can we really ensure the teaching and learning process in present scenario? Mr. Nirola, you there?
Ajur, Ajur, are you hearing me, sir? Okay.
Ajur, yes, please. Yes, please, go ahead.
Perhaps in my previous presentation, I have already mentioned that the government has started the alternative learning process and how we can reach to the students, among the students, and the process has been already initiated. Yes, there is some difference between the private and the public education system, because private education system, they have their own, the system itself is very small, and in terms of the government, it takes a bit difficult to make decisions. That may be one reason, and we are trying through alternative education systems to reach out all corner of the school or corner of the country. So I have already mentioned that some of the municipalities who are out of the access, they are providing FM radios so that the FM radio can they can learn through the radio. So these are some interventions we have taken to initiate to bring all the students in the mainstream. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. With this, I think we have come. There's a good. Okay. The second, really. Okay. Yes, there's a question for Saili Chaudhary ji. That what is your organization Sanskriti doing exactly in the Tarai region to solve the problem that you mentioned?
Sanskriti is more focused on the vocational trainings. We have been providing trainings and workshops to the youth who are involved in creative field, who want to pursue their passion as their career. We had also planned to bring the diploma courses, 3 months and 6 month diploma courses right before from this academic session, but due to pandemic, we were not able to bring that. And we didn't go digital because we are more focused on the rural areas of Madhes, more primarily in Parsa and Bara district. So we didn't think that, we thought that going digital would not make much sense right now because the facility is not there and we would not be able to deliver what we are expecting to deliver. So that is why we have hold that project on, we have hold that project for a while right now. But we are bringing, we are more focused on vocational trainings and community building and bringing youths together and collaborating them, that how their creative activities, their creative passion, they can pursue as their self-employment opportunity as well and help in the community building and overall reimagining education in the way they want to reimagine
it. Thank you very much. Again, a question to Yadav Chandra Nirola sir, that what the government is doing to the issues of the disabled students to address their needs in the country.
त्यो शिक्षा विज्ञान तथा प्रविधि मन्त्रालय अन्तर्गत त्यो विशेष शिक्षा इकाइ र मानव स्रोत विकास केन्द्र अन्तर्गत पनि विशेष शिक्षा इकाइ रहेको छ र त्यो विशेष शिक्षा इकाइले त्यो डिजेबलका लागि चाहिँ योजना बनाउने र त्यसलाई कार्यान्वयन गर्ने कामहरू गरिरहेको छ। त्यो भलै त्यो अलिकति अपुगो होला, तर त्यो चाहिँ विशेष शिक्षा नीति नेपाल सरकारले लागू गरेको छ र त्यस अनुसारका कुराहरू चाहिँ अगाडि बढाइरहेको कुरा चाहिँ म अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु।
धन्यवाद यादव चन्द्र निरौलाजी। यो सँगसँगै अब हाम्रो समयले पनि भइसकेको छ र हामी चाहिँ नि now would like to close the session and we would like to profusely thank all the panelists for their inputs and to all the participants for their overwhelmingly participations and their enthusiasm and their questions. Yes, maybe I would like to request the panelists who are present to turn on their camera. Yes, and certainly this is the time that need for greater conversation, collaboration, and meaningful involvement. We hope that you will take this opportunity to take action and have your voice heard. The UN looks forward to reimagining the future we want together with you. So with these words, I would like to thank once again all of you for the participation. And we want to take a group photo of all the panelists of this session. So please hold on for a couple of seconds with us.
Okay, please, my cam video, please unmute my video.
Yeah, screenshot from you.
Screenshot नहीं बोला.
3, 2, 1.
Huh? All right.
So ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. Thank you once again for participation and see you soon in the near future. Stay safe. Goodbye.